right, y'all. Welcome. This is one of my, again, all these are my favorite chapters. This one is also a favorite chapter. I've got a lot of notes on my computer here for this one, and so don't want to miss anything. But we're talking about input, and we've went through some of the chapters. I've brought this up about the type of influence that we have in our life, if it's what kind of people we're around. But I want to dig into some of the details of it in this chapter. I call this incoming information, and there's two types. There's an analog and a digital, and obviously analog, I associate that with the people we're around, and then digital are the TV, apps, social media things that we allow into our eyes. And so we're going to get into that a little bit. And so here's a great fact. It has been scientifically documented that humans are receiving between, I want to get this right, between 10 and 11 million pieces of information per second when we're awake. 10 and 11 million pieces of information per second. So everything that our eyes get the bulk of that, roughly 85 to 90%. Our ears get somewhere between the hearing 5 to 10%, and then the leftovers go to everything else. So that's a lot of information coming in at one time. And so how does our mind process that? And what does it do with it? And how does it impact us? So the part of our brain that handles the visual processing tends to stick around a little longer. Has a little more permanency than what our hearing does. So that explains why a lot of times we can meet someone and they tell us their name and we remember their face but forget their name, because the part of our brain that processes hearing is a little more temporary. A lot of people will associate a person's name with an image in their mind, and therefore they can remember names better than other people. But that's how they're doing that. So when we're, like, for instance, driving down the road, our eyes and brain is seeing all the stripes on the road, all the trees, all the grass, all the cars, all the buildings, there's so much. Well, our brain can't process and filter all of that every single second. And so what happens is our brain can consciously process a certain amount of the 10 to 11 million pieces of information, and it's the amount it can process a second is 40 pieces of information can actually be consciously processed at one time, and the other millions and millions of pieces go to our subconscious and get cataloged and categorized in other ways. And so our eyes do most of the work. Our ears do some of it. And so all that other information that just the mind deems not critical goes into an area called our default sensory mode. And it tries its best, the mind tries its best to categorize and catalog all the other million pieces the best it can, and assume that it knows probably where you want it to go. And then when you go to sleep at night, it will say, hey, this is probably not important, so we're going to remove that from our long-term memory. We'll keep it for a little while, a couple of days, but then we're going to probably just end up doing away with it. But what it believes is important to you, it'll get stored while we sleep in our long-term memory. That's why sleep is pretty important. That's another thing that we'll get to at some point, but your sleep cycles are very important, and what you do before you go to bed, as far as having lights on and being with your so we're not going to get into that right now. But again, your brain, we've talked about this, it's one of its biggest assets is it's trying to be as efficient and fast as possible. So it's trying to do a lot of the work on its own, and if we're not intentional about it, it can do some stuff in a way that we don't want it to do. So before we get too far into that, let's talk about people, your circle of influence, the analog input. We mentioned in an earlier chapter Jim Rohn's quote about He doesn't have to know you. He can just look at the 5 people you're around the most and pretty much tell you who you are. And that can either be a very positive, awesome thing or very scary. You need to assess the people that you have the choice to be around the most. Now, you probably can't, you don't want to, change spouses necessarily. You can't change your kids necessarily. You generally aren't going to be changing coworkers necessarily all the time. But you can control the amount that you let in from those type of things. But the people you choose to be around, the friends, the family that you can choose to be around, that's where we can begin to be a little more selective and intentional of becoming friends and developing friendships and relationships with people that have proven to be, that can make you better, that can challenge you, that are really interested in what you're saying, and they have questions and they have opinions. And I've got some people like that in my life now that they're not just going to take what you say and therefore it is. They're going to challenge me. Can you back up that thought, that idea, that concept, that opinion? Can you prove it? Like, why do you think that way? And I've learned that I love being around people like that. They're not going to be on their phone the whole time we're talking. They're genuinely interested in what is being talked about. And so find some of those people if you don't have them now. And if you're forced to be around, if you're in a situation where you're forced to be around certain people, they're not like that. Just have the mindfulness and present awareness to be able to filter through those things, that you don't let them over influence you in a negative way. So the people you're around, very important, very critical that you manage that. Now, the second type of input, and we're going to talk about for the next few minutes, is digital. A lot of this is self-explanatory, but for some people, they get caught up in these negative cycles and they're just bombarding their minds with things that are just not healthy, or they don't have a healthy balance. And then they wonder why they think a certain way or have a negative dialogue that's just influencing them in the wrong way, unhealthy. Well, it's because of the digital input you're just allowing yourself. There's a certain quote about how much in a lifetime we spend watching TV. I don't have that in front of me. I know it's a lot. Same thing with social media, and that's a growing number every day. And I try to put time limits on how much I spend, how much time I spend on social media, how much time I watch television, because I know at the end of the night that is impacting my life in a way that I don't want it to go. And so it just depends on what you want in the end. One of my values was discipline. I struggled with self-discipline, and I had to force myself to cut back, to shut down some of the social media quantity that I watched, and same thing with TV. And after a while, I got to where I really couldn't watch a lot of television. I didn't want to. I wanted to pick up a book and read it, and something that would help me. But it took time for me to get that way. Facebook and Snapchat and TikTok and Instagram, those can be fun things, but out of balance, out of spending too much time on that stuff. I like keeping up with some politic things, especially right now. But if I can catch myself doing too much, and all of a sudden I have to catch myself and go, hey, you're going too far. And that's a mindfulness thing. That's not being productive. That's being unhealthy. It crosses a line of moderation. So catching myself, input is critical to your thoughts and feelings and emotional responses and the words that come out of your mouth and how you treat yourself and talk to yourself. Be mindful of what you allow before your eyes. You've got so many millions and millions and millions of pieces of information coming at you, and your brain is trying to figure out what to let in and what to keep out. And you can help make that job easier by managing and filtering the quality and quantity of what you set before your eyes. So there's going to be there's some questions there for you, some thoughts there for you to fill out on. This is a powerful, significant chapter in the book. And so do an evaluation. What kind of people are you around? Who are you allowing to speak into your life? Are you in a small group? Is it a healthy one? Are you growing? Are you experiencing growth from the people you're around? And then what are you watching? What are you setting before your eyes? And what are the words that are coming out of your mouth? So hope you enjoyed it. I'll see you at the next chapter.